PG&E's monopoly territory is home to 17 million people.
Families already struggle to pay their bills.
PG&E was convicted of 91 felonies.
Really? I mean, what's next?
Greybeard Talks Solar. He is SolarWise.
Welcome to the Greybeard Talks Solar YouTube channel. I'm so glad that you're here. This is a place where we share knowledge, ideas, wisdom, thoughts on the solar industry in general. And today's video is going to be all about what do you do when your solar company goes out of business. Unfortunately, it's been a common concern and a frequent situation that we have to deal with and many homeowners have to deal with. So we're going to jump into that today. But before we do, please like, share, and subscribe to the channel. If you've seen us before, if you've seen me talk about certain things, if you find it useful and informative, please spread the word by liking and sharing and subscribing to the channel. So, what happens when your solar company goes out of business? Are you effectively stuck with no support? Do you have any resources? No help? Well, the good news is you're not out of options. There are some things that you can do, but the problem is persisting. For those of you that are aware, some very large, very well-known companies have gone under in the last 18 months to 2 years. For example, Pink Energy on the East Coast, Titan Energy has gone out of business. In California, big ones, SunPower went out of business. Sonova is going out of business. A financier called Mosaic is going out of business. And in fact, I think after the first 18 months after the whole NEM 2 to NEM 3 change occurred, we had over 100 solar companies in California go out of business in like a 6-month window when not 100 companies had gone out of business in the last 3 or 4 years. So it is a persistent problem that does occur. Now, unfortunately, part of the reason that I'm doing this video is it is my expectation that unfortunately this is going to get worse before it gets better. So for those of you that may not be aware, the big, beautiful bill from the Trump administration is axing the 30% federal solar income tax credit at the end of the year, which means there's going to be less financial benefit, or it's going to take longer to get to full cost recovery or a break-even point, which is obviously going to affect the adoption rate and affect sales in general. And unfortunately, I think that will be the final straw on the camel's back that breaks it for a lot of solar installers in California, especially the small guys, and I think also the big guys. So I think the two biggest companies that are at risk with this big, beautiful bill, 30% tax credit loss, are the biggest companies out there, companies like Sunrun, primarily because you think they have a lot of financial strength, but they're going to have to unwind their solar infrastructure, their business for selling solar in probably about 30 states where presently they are actively selling solar. So imagine how many offices they have to close, how many warehouses, leases they have to get out from underneath, how much trucks and supply and stuff like that they got to get rid of. Because literally, for context, in California, PG&E rates right now, 43 cents to 62 cents a kilowatt hour. That's why so much solar adoption is occurring, 43 to 62. PG&E is the most expensive utility in the contiguous United States, 43 to 62. In Texas, for example, it's 4 cents or 9 cents. So in California, 43 to 62 cents, Texas, 4 to 9 cents, with the 30% loss of that tax credit. Who's going to want to adopt solar in those other states? So I think the big guys are at risk. The other side of the equation is I do think the small guys, local guys, regional guys, okay, the guys that maybe do 50 systems a month, okay? Now that seems like a lot. It's really not a lot. In solar, it's a small guy, right? So local company to you, maybe. The smaller the company, the less financial options that they have. So for example, the smaller the company, they don't have leases. The smaller the company, they don't have power purchase programs. Some of these small companies, the only way they make money, the only way they write business, the only way that they generate revenue for themselves is to sell cash-owned systems to residential homeowners that want to adopt solar. Okay, so that is the exact market that's going to get clobbered when this 30% tax credit loss takes effect January 1st of 2026. I do expect many of those small guys are going to be out of business maybe mid-year next year. Okay, those guys can maybe weather a month or two with anemically low business, but they can't weather 6 months. Okay, they just won't be able to survive. So the reason I'm doing the video, what happens when your solar company goes out of business, is I want to give you some resources. So the first thing that you need to understand is the solar company that installed your system is just that. They're kind of the middleman. They're the installer of the equipment. Okay, now solar panels, the good panels out there, 20-year warranty from the manufacturer. Great solar panels are going to have a 25-year warranty. Exceptional solar panels are going to have a 30-year warranty. So 20, 25, or 30, it does depend on the manufacturer. But if you had a system installed and you've got a panel problem, okay, that's a warranted item by the manufacturer, not the installer. Stated differently, okay, another installer that works with that same manufacturer could install that panel to replace your faulty one, and the cost of that installation, at least on the panel side, is covered by the manufacturer. They will provide that panel at no out-of-pocket cost. You may have to pay some labor, but they will provide the panel at no out-of-pocket cost. So number one, you're not completely abandoned. So on the panels, 20, 25, or 30-year warranties are pretty consistent. On the inverter side, it does depend on whether you've got a string inverter or micro inverter, but let's take a look at both. A string inverter strings panels together in series. There's one main box, one main unit, usually on the side of your house or in your garage. That's a string inverter system. Most inverters are at least 20 to 25-year warranties as well from their individual manufacturers. Okay, so the companies that are on the front lines of going out of business are the companies that install solar. The companies that aren't on the front lines of going out of business are the manufacturers. Generally speaking, the manufacturers of panels and inverters are much more financially able to withstand the changes that we're seeing within solar, and these changes are unlikely to put them out of business. For the following reasons, think about it this way. The big, beautiful bill, it's really going to enhance commercial solar adoption. Companies out there can accelerate, depreciate the solar asset that they're installing, so commercial solar projects are going to thrive. Residential solar in California is mandated that if you build a house or build an apartment, you've got to install residential solar at that particular property as part of the California building code. To finish the construction, you have to install solar. So solar is going to persist. Panels are going to continue to be manufactured. And Lord knows in California, PG&E is not going to get less expensive. They're only going to continue to get more, as is with Edison and San Diego Gas and Electric. So the utilities are going to continue to get more expensive. This is going to slow solar adoption in 2026, but that slowing of solar adoption in 2026 is going to put a lot of small companies out of business. And I think some of the biggest companies out there, the multi-state companies, they're at risk too, right? So panel manufacturer, 20, 25, 30 years. Inverters, usually 20, 25 years from the manufacturer. And then we get to batteries. So it doesn't matter whether you've got a Tesla, whether you've got a in-phase battery, could have a Franklin battery, could have an LG. There's lots of different batteries out there, but generally a battery warranty is 10 years. The longest warranty that we're seeing with batteries right now is about 15 years, again, from the manufacturer. So if your solar installer went out of business and you've got an issue with your panels, inverter, or your batteries, you really need to contact the manufacturer of either the panels, the inverters, or the batteries and see if they've got a local installer that they presently work with that's contracted to do those installations and repairs for you. It may cost you a little money, but it's certainly not going to cost you as much as if you didn't have any benefit at all, because you'd have to buy the panels, buy the inverter itself, whereas it may be warranted. You may not have to buy that if you contact a separate installer that works with that particular manufacturer. You just want to make sure you define the model number and the serial number on either that battery or those inverters, which may be difficult to do if you get on the roof, but if you call out a local solar company, usually for a couple $100, they can do that analysis and give you an idea as to whether there's something going on with the actual panels or whether it's wiring or those types of issues. Now, the most common type of problems that we see usually are the genesis of those are critters. So solar, because it doesn't have any moving parts, there's no oil to change, there's no brake pads to replace, there's no, coolant to add. There's nothing like that with solar. There's no moving parts. It's got no gears that grind. It's got no transmission. All it is wiring. So effectively, the biggest jeopardy to wiring sometimes is squirrels. Sometimes it can be birds. Other times it's chipmunks. It could be whatever animals you have in and around rodents and pests like that sometimes will get in there. They'll nest, they'll create problems, they can chew on stuff. That is the biggest reason why we see some of those problems. And so you may not actually have a warranted problem dealing with the panels, the inverters, or the battery. It could be one of those types of things. And so again, I think it's important to explore that. Now, if this is a common concern, given my acknowledgement that I think this coming next year is going to be pretty problematic for a lot of solar installers out there, then did you know that there's some companies out there that actually provide insurance for this very issue? So for example, one of the companies, and we'll provide a link in the chat or a link in the description of the show, but there is a company out there called Solar Insure that will provide you insurance, and they cover events like your solar company going out of business. So usually the solar insurance, or Solar Insure, for example, if you reach out to them directly, you would normally need to take action on that before your system goes live. So in other words, there are some companies that do provide that kind of a benefit, but you've got to do it at the time of the installation. It may not be something that you can add on later. Now, we do have a company by the name of Omnidian, that you can contact. They may accept systems post-installation depending on the age and the specs of the system. So two companies, Solar Insure, and then another company called Omnidian, can provide you insurance. If this is a pressing or worrisome concern for you, your solar company going out of business, I would definitely encourage you to check in with one of those companies. Now, having said that, my role, I'm a solar broker. My company, SolarWise, we deal with about 11 different installers right now throughout the state of California. I've gone through about 30 different installers trying to find the best of the best in the state. That's how we whittled the list down, got rid of 19, netted about 11. And those are the companies that we presently work with. So if you need a resource, if you'd like to speak with us because you'd like to explore this further, or you have questions that weren't necessarily addressed in this video, then you can reach out to us directly. All you got to do is text this number, the 84503 number. If you take out your smartphone, key in 84503 in the texting app for a phone number, just text us your question. Hey, I got a system, concerned about a warranty. Text us whatever your question is, whatever your concern is, and we'll definitely be in touch and see if we can't help you. As a broker, we try to pair homeowners that have been abandoned for or orphaned by a company going out of business with an installer that we can trust, that knows what they're doing and has got fair pricing. So please don't hesitate to reach out. But lastly here, let me close out the video by saying, listen, it's an unfortunate problem that happens. People do, and companies do end up going out of business. Solar's got very thin margins. You think that they would have greater margins than what they actually do on the installer side. It's very thin margins for them. And I do worry that this is going to get worse before it gets better, but you do have options. Think about the manufacturer. The manufacturer, if they still exist, you do have a recourse there. We can find you another installer to do the repairs if necessary. By all means, reach out. If you want to get insurance, look at Solar Insure or Omnidian. Those are great companies to potentially explore. And one last thing, if this has been valuable, if it's been helpful to you at all, please smash the like, share, and subscribe buttons. This is a place where a little wisdom goes a long way toward turning sunlight into some serious savings for you. I want to thank you for watching the Greybeard Talks Solar channel, and rest assured I'm going to be back here same time, same place next week to launch another video. Have a great week.
Thanks for listening to SolarWise, Greybeard Talks Solar. Please visit our website, solarwiseco.com, to learn more. And we will see you next time on SolarWise.